The day I sold my grandmother's ring, a piece of my soul went with it. I watched the jeweler examine the delicate gold band through his loupe, his expression carefully neutral as he assessed the small diamond that had graced my grandmother's hand for over 50 years. I'm Lexi, and until last month, I thought I knew what family loyalty meant. Now I'm not so sure. 3,000, the jeweler said finally, setting down his tools. That's the best I can do. My throat tightened. The ring was worth more, much more, but I needed the money today. Mum's surgery was scheduled for tomorrow morning, and the hospital wanted the deposit immediately. I'll take it, I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. As I left the shop, my phone buzzed. It was my brother Aiden. Hey, sis, where are you? Mum's asking for you. Just running an errand, I said, clutching the envelope of cash. I'll be at the hospital in 20 minutes. Better hurry. She's in one of her moods. Says the pain is getting worse. I quickened my pace, my heel catching on a crack in the sidewalk. The memory of Gran giving me the ring flooded back, her wrinkled hands clasping mine, her eyes bright despite the cancer eating away at her. Promise me you'll keep it in the family, Lexi, she'd said. It's more than just a ring. It's our history. The hospital lobby was eerily quiet when I arrived. Mom lay in her bed, looking smaller than usual against the stark white sheets. Her best friend Cassandra sat beside her, scrolling through her phone. There you are, Mum's voice was weak. I was worried sick. I'm here now, I said, forcing a smile. And I have good news. I got the money for your deposit. Mum's eyes lit up. Oh, sweetheart, how did you manage that? Before I could answer, Aiden burst through the door, waving a piece of paper. Mom, you dropped this in the cafeteria, he said, handing her what looked like a receipt. What's Gucci? Mom snatched the paper from his hand, crumpling it quickly. Just some window shopping online. Helps distract me from the pain. Cassandra shot Mom a quick glance that I couldn't quite read. The important thing is, I interrupted, pulling out the envelope, we can proceed with the surgery tomorrow. My angel, Mom whispered, reaching for my hand. What would I do without you? That night I couldn't sleep. The empty space on my finger where Gran's ring used to sit felt like an accusation. I called my best friend Sophia, needing to hear a friendly voice. You did the right thing, she assured me. Your mom needs this surgery. Gran would understand. I know, I said, but something nagged at me. It's just, something feels off. Mom was so quick to grab that receipt from Aiden. She's probably embarrassed about online shopping while sick, Sophia reasoned. Try to get some sleep, okay? The next morning, I arrived early at the hospital. The halls were busy with the morning shift change, nurses hurrying past with charts and medication carts. I found Mum's room empty, her bed neatly made. Panic gripped me. Excuse me, I caught a passing nurse. My mother, Presley Roberts. Was she taken to surgery already? The nurse checked her tablet, frowning. I don't show any surgeries scheduled for a Presley Roberts today. There must be a mistake. She was supposed to have surgery this morning. We paid the deposit yesterday. Let me check with admitting, she said kindly. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Had to reschedule surgery. Doctor called. Going home to rest. Don't worry. Something cold settled in my stomach. I called the hospital's billing department, my hands shaking. I'm sorry, the clerk said, but we have no record of any deposit payment for Presley Roberts yesterday. Are you sure you have the right hospital? I sank into a nearby chair, the fluorescent light suddenly too bright. The envelope of cash, my grandmother's ring, the crumpled receipt, Mom's quick dismissal. It all swirled in my mind like pieces of a puzzle I wasn't ready to solve. My phone buzzed again. A text from Aiden. Found something weird in Mum's bag. Can you come over? I texted back immediately. On my way. As I drove to Mom's house, Gran's last words echoed in my head. It's more than just a ring. It's our history. What I didn't know then was that our family history was about to unravel in ways I never could have imagined. I found Aiden pacing in Mum's driveway, running his hands through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since we were kids. "You're not going to believe this," he said, leading me inside. "Mum's not home. She went shopping with Cassandra." "Shopping?" The word felt like acid in my mouth. "She's supposed to be resting after her cancelled surgery." In the kitchen, Aidan pulled out his phone. "Listen to this. I recorded it because I knew you wouldn't believe me otherwise." He pressed play, and Mum's laughter filled the room. Not the weak, pained sound I'd heard at the hospital, but full and vibrant. "That Hermes bag was totally worth it," Mum's voice rang out. "You should have seen Lexi's face when I told her about needing the surgery deposit. She'd do anything for her sick mother." My knees buckled, and I grabbed the counter for support. Cassandra's voice came next. "Girl, you're terrible. But that bag is gorgeous. Where are you hiding all these goodies anyway?" "In my bedroom closet, behind the old quilts. Lexi never goes in there." Aidan stopped the recording, his face pale. "There's more, but I couldn't listen to the rest." I was already halfway up the stairs, taking them two at a time. In Mum's room, I yanked open her closet door and pushed aside the stack of quilts. Behind them, shopping bags lined the wall. Gucci, Hermes, Louis Vuitton. "Oh my God," Sophia's voice came from behind me. I hadn't even heard her come in. Aidan called me. I got here as fast as I could. My hands trembled as I pulled out receipt after receipt. 3,000 for a bag, 2,000 for shoes, 4,000 for a watch. "The ring money," I whispered. "She used my grandmother's ring money for this." "We need to document everything," Sophia said, pulling out her phone. "Take pictures of all the receipts, the bags, everything." As she photographed the evidence, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Lexi?" an elderly woman's voice asked. "This is Virginia Grant. I was your grandmother's best friend." "Virginia? Yes, I remember you." "Honey, I've been trying to work up the courage to call you. There's something you need to know about your mother." I put the phone on speaker so Aidan and Sophia could hear. "Your grandmother suspected Presley was stealing from her before she died. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. She never confronted her because she couldn't bear the thought of her daughter being a thief." My free hand clenched into a fist. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I saw Presley yesterday, shopping at the mall. She was wearing designer clothes and laughing about some surgery story. When I heard she was sick, I'd been praying for her, but just then we heard a car pull into the driveway." "I have to go," I whispered into the phone. "Thank you for telling me." We scrambled to replace the quilts just as the front door opened. Mom's voice drifted up the stairs, along with the rustle of shopping bags. "Cassandra, you have to see what I got. This scarf is divine." Her voice trailed off as she reached the top of the stairs and saw us all in her bedroom. "What are you doing in here?" Her smile faltered slightly. I held up one of the receipts that had fallen to the floor. "I don't know, Mom. Maybe you can explain why you're buying $1,000 scarves when you're supposed to be having surgery." "Oh, sweetie," she laughed nervously. "I can explain. The surgery was postponed, and I just needed a little retail therapy to lift my spirits." "With my grandmother's ring money?" My voice cracked. "What ring money?" Aidan asked, looking between us. Mom's face hardened. "Lexi, you're making a scene. We can discuss this later." "No, we're discussing it now," I said, pulling out my phone. "Should I play the recording of you bragging to Cassandra about manipulating me?" The color drained from her face. Behind her, Cassandra appeared, clutching shopping bags. "I think I should go," Cassandra mumbled, backing away. "Stay right there," I snapped. "You're just as guilty, enabling her lies." Mom's expression shifted from shock to anger. "How dare you go through my things? After everything I've done for you?" "Everything you've done?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean like making me sell Gran's ring for a fake surgery so you could buy designer bags?" Aidan slumped against the wall, looking sick. Sophia put her arm around him. "Get out," Mom hissed. "All of you, get out of my house." As we left, I turned back one last time. "This isn't over, Mom. Not by a long shot. I didn't know it then, but those words would set in motion a chain of events that would change our family forever." 3 days after discovering Mom's deception, I sat in a coffee shop staring at my phone. Dozens of missed calls from her lit up the screen, along with texts ranging from angry accusations to tearful apologies. "Delete them all," Sophia said, sliding into the seat across from me. "She's just trying to manipulate you again." "I know, but—" My phone buzzed with a new message, this time from a different number. "Lexi, it's your father. We need to talk." I nearly dropped my phone. I hadn't heard from Dad in 5 years, not since he moved across the country after the divorce. "It's Dad," I whispered to Sophia. "He wants to meet." "Your mum must have called him," she said. "Are you going to respond?" Before I could answer, Mum's latest text came through. "I'm outside your apartment. Please talk to me. I can explain everything." "She's stalking me now." I showed Sophia the message. "Stay at my place tonight," Sophia offered. "But first, text your dad back. Maybe he knows something we don't." I typed quickly. "Starbucks on 5th Street, 30 minutes?" His response was immediate. "I'll be there." The next half hour was a blur of anxiety and coffee. When Dad walked in, he looked older than I remembered, his hair grayer, but his eyes were the same warm brown as mine. "You look just like your grandmother," he said, sitting down. "Why are you here, Dad?" He sighed, pulling out his phone. "Your mother called me yesterday, crying about how you're spreading lies about her. But then I got this email from Virginia Grant." He showed me the screen. It was a long email detailing how Mum had stolen from Gran, complete with bank statements and checks. "I knew she had problems with money," Dad said, "but I had no idea how deep it went. It's why we really divorced. She was taking loans in my name." My hands shook as I read the email. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was trying to protect you kids. I thought if I just left quietly, took the financial hit, she'd get help. Obviously, I was wrong." The bell above the door chimed, and Mom walked in. Her designer outfit looked garish under the fluorescent lights. "Well, isn't this cozy?" she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Turning my own husband against me now." "Ex-husband," Dad corrected. "Sit down, Presley. We need to talk about what you did to Lexi." "What I did?" Mom's voice rose. "I'm sick. I needed help, and my daughter chose to help me. That's what family does. Stop lying." I slammed my hand on the table, making other customers turn and stare. "We have proof. The recording, the receipts, Virginia's evidence about Gran's money. Just stop." Mum's face crumpled. "You don't understand. After your father left, I had nothing. No one cared about me. The shopping, it makes me feel better. So you used your own mother's death and your daughter's love to fund your addiction." Dad's voice was cold. "That's low, even for you, Presley. You're all against me," Mum whispered, tears streaming down her face. "My own family." "Family doesn't exploit family," I said. "Gran trusted you, I trusted you, and you betrayed us both." Mom's tears dried instantly. "Fine. You want to play it this way? Go ahead. But remember, Lexi, I'm still your mother. I can make things very difficult for you. Is that a threat?" Dad stood up. "Because I still have evidence of those fraudulent loans. Want to see how difficult I can make things for you?" Mom grabbed her designer purse and stormed out. Through the window, I watched her climb into her new Mercedes, probably bought with my grandmother's ring money. "I'm so sorry, Lexi," Dad said. "I should have warned you years ago." My phone buzzed again. A text from Aiden. "Mum just called me crying. What's going on?" "It's never going to stop, is it?" I asked Dad. "She'll keep playing the victim, manipulating everyone." Dad squeezed my hand. "Not if we don't let her. I have a friend who specializes in financial fraud cases. Want his number?" I stared at my empty ring finger, thinking about Gran, about justice, about karma. An idea began to form. "Not yet," I said slowly. "I have a better idea. Mom likes designer things so much. Let's give her exactly what she wants." Dad raised an eyebrow. "What are you planning?" "Something that will make her face her own lies," I said, pulling up a website on my phone. "How much do you know about replica jewelry?" As I showed Dad my plan, I felt a mix of guilt and satisfaction. Mum had taught me well about deception. Now it was time to use that lesson against her. "Are you sure about this?" Sophia asked, watching me scroll through replica ring listings on my laptop. Fighting deception with deception might not be the best move. "I need to make her understand what it feels like," I said, clicking on a ring that looked eerily similar to Gran's. "Besides, I'm not done investigating yet." My phone lit up with a message from Virginia. "Found something interesting in your grandmother's old papers. Can you come over?" 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Virginia's living room, surrounded by boxes of Gran's documents. The smell of Earl Grey tea filled the air. "Look at this," Virginia said, pulling out a stack of credit card statements. "Your mother was added as an authorized user on all your grandmother's accounts 3 months before she passed." I flipped through the statements, my stomach churning. The spending started right after that. "There's more." Virginia handed me a folder. "Cassandra's name is on some of these transactions. They were working together." "Of course they were," I muttered. "Where did they shop?" "Mostly at Hamilton's Jewelry on Main Street." I sat up straighter. "That's where I sold Gran's ring." Virginia's eyes widened. "You don't think—" My phone rang. It was Dad. "Lexi, I just got off the phone with my fraud investigator friend. You need to hear this." I put him on speaker. "Cassandra works at Hamilton's Jewelry," Dad said. "She's been there for 15 years. The pieces clicked into place. I grabbed my keys. "I have to go." "Lexi, wait," Virginia called after me, but I was already halfway to my car. Hamilton's Jewelry was quiet when I walked in. Behind the counter, Cassandra's face went pale. We're closing," she stammered. "No, you're not. Not for another 2 hours." I approached the counter. "Where's my grandmother's ring, Cassandra?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really? Because I think you do. I think you and my mother planned this whole thing. You knew exactly what that ring was worth when I brought it in." Cassandra's hands shook as she straightened some displays. "You sold it willingly. Under false pretenses. You lowballed me because Mom told you to, didn't you? Then what? Did you resell it for its real value and split the difference?" "Your mother needed help," Cassandra whispered. "She said it was the only way." The bell above the door chimed. Mom walked in, freezing when she saw me. "Well," she said, recovering quickly, "isn't this interesting?" "Where's Gran's ring?" I demanded. "Sold," Mom said coldly, "to a private collector, for $12,000. The room spun. "12,000? You told me it was worth 3. Business is business, darling." Mom smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Cassandra and I have quite the little operation going. Your grandmother's ring was just the latest acquisition." "You're admitting to fraud?" "Proving it would be very difficult," Mom said, examining her manicured nails. "Besides, who would believe you over your sick mother?" I pulled out my phone, stopping the recording. Mom's smug expression faltered. "You didn't—" "I did. And I'm sure the police would be very interested in hearing about your little operation with Cassandra." "You wouldn't dare," Mom hissed. "I'm your mother." "No," I said quietly. "A mother wouldn't do this to her child. A mother wouldn't steal from her own mother's deathbed." Cassandra started crying. "Presley, we should tell her." "Tell me what?" "Shut up, Cassandra," Mom snapped. "The ring," Cassandra continued, ignoring Mom. "It's in the safe. We never sold it. Presley wanted to keep it for herself." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Open the safe." "Don't you dare," Mom yelled, but Cassandra was already moving toward the back room. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Police are on their way. Don't let them leave." Mom must have seen something in my expression because she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. I stepped in front of her. "Move, Lexi." "No. This ends now." Cassandra returned with a small velvet box. Inside was Gran's ring, exactly as I remembered it. "I'm so sorry," Cassandra whispered. "We never should have—" The police arrived before she could finish. As they took statements and collected evidence, I held Gran's ring tightly, its familiar weight both a comfort and a reminder. Mom watched me from the back of the police car, her expression unreadable. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty about my plan for revenge. She needed to learn how it felt to be deceived by someone you trust. I slipped the ring into my pocket and pulled up the replica jewelry website again. Mum's birthday was coming up, and I had the perfect gift in mind. The replica just arrived, I told Sophia over the phone. It's perfect. Looks exactly like Gran's ring. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Sophia asked. Your mom's already facing fraud charges. Maybe that's punishment enough? I turned the fake ring over in my hand. After the incident at Hamilton's, Mom had managed to avoid jail time by agreeing to pay restitution and attend therapy for her shopping addiction. She was playing the reformed mother role perfectly now, hosting her birthday party next week, as if nothing had happened. You didn't see her face when she got that plea deal, I said. She was smirking, Sophia. She thinks she got away with it. My doorbell rang. It was Aiden, looking troubled. I'll call you back, I told Sophia. Aiden paced my living room. Mom's been asking about you. She wants you at her birthday party. Says she's changed, that therapy is helping. And you believe her? I don't know what to believe anymore. He collapsed onto my couch. But she's our mom, Lex. Maybe we should give her another chance. I showed him the replica ring. That's exactly what I plan to do. What is that? A very expensive fake. I'm going to give it to her at her party. Tell her I bought back Gran's ring. Aiden's eyes widened. But you have the real one. Exactly. Let's see how honest she's really become. This is messed up, Lex. More messed up than what she did to us. Before he could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Your mother just called. Says she's inviting me to her birthday party too. What's she playing at? Great, I muttered. She's gathering an audience. The next week flew by in a blur of preparation. I had the fake ring wrapped in the same vintage paper Gran used to use, complete with a handwritten note about family heritage and second chances. The morning of Mum's party, Sophia helped me get ready. You look like you're going to be sick, she said, watching me apply mascara with shaking hands. I feel like it. What if this backfires? Then we deal with it. But remember, you're not the bad guy here. When we arrived at Mum's house, it was already full of people. Cassandra was noticeably absent, but Dad stood awkwardly by the punch bowl, making small talk with relatives we hadn't seen in years. Lexi, Mom rushed over, pulling me into a hug I didn't return. I'm so glad you came. I've been telling everyone about my progress in therapy. That's great, Mom, I said, clutching my purse where both rings sat heavy against each other. Present time, someone called out, and everyone gathered in the living room. Mom opened gift after gift, exclaiming over each one with practiced enthusiasm. Finally, only my package remained. Save the best for last, she said, smiling at me. The room fell quiet as she unwrapped it. Her hands froze when she saw the ring box. Is this... she whispered. I tracked it down, I lied smoothly. The private collector was willing to sell it back, for family. Mum's eyes welled with tears as she slipped the replica onto her finger. It's exactly as I remember it. Your grandmother would be so proud. Dad caught my eye from across the room. He knew about my plan and had positioned himself near the door, ready for whatever happened next. Try it on, Presley, one of our aunts called out. Let us see. Mom held up her hand, the fake diamond catching the light. It's amazing how something so small can mean so much to a family. Isn't it? I said, my voice steady. Almost as amazing as having two of them. The room went silent as I pulled out the real ring. Mom's face drained of color. I don't understand. Don't you? I got the real one back from Hamilton's jewelry. This one, I pointed to her hand, is a very expensive fake. I wanted to see if you'd tell the truth about it. Lexi, would you have told everyone it was fake? Or would you have kept pretending, just like you pretended to be sick? Aiden stood up. I think we should all give them some privacy. As relatives filed out awkwardly, Mom stared at the ring on her finger. How dare you humiliate me like this? How dare I laughed. That's rich coming from you. I'm trying to change, she shouted. I'm in therapy. I'm making amends. No, Mom, you're still lying, still manipulating, and now everyone knows it. I placed the real ring on her coffee table. Happy birthday. The truth looks good on you. As I walked out, I heard her start to cry. Real tears this time, not the calculated ones I'd grown up with. But for the first time in my life, I didn't turn back. The fallout from Mum's birthday party spread through our family like wildfire. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from relatives taking sides. Some called me cruel. Others praised me for exposing the truth. I ignored them all. A week later, Aidan showed up at my apartment, looking exhausted. Mum's been drinking, he said, dropping onto my couch. She won't take off the fake ring. What? She keeps staring at it, talking about how she deserves to suffer with the fake one. He ran his hands through his hair. I think you broke her, Lex. Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was Dad. Turn on the local news, he said without greeting. Now. I grabbed the remote and my heart stopped. There was Mom, being interviewed outside her house, tears streaming down her face. My own daughter set me up, she sobbed to the reporter. After everything I've been through, the therapy, the restitution payments, she couldn't let me heal. She had to punish me publicly. She's playing the victim again, I muttered. It gets worse, Dad said. Keep watching. The camera panned to show Cassandra standing beside Mom, looking appropriately contrite. I enabled her addiction for years, Cassandra admitted, but Presley's really trying to change. What Lexi did at the birthday party was cruel. She's becoming just like her mother used to be, manipulative, deceptive. I turned off the TV, my hands shaking. She's turning this around on me. That's not all, Aidan said, showing me his phone. She started a social media campaign about toxic family relationships and public humiliation. It's going viral. My doorbell rang. It was Sophia, carrying wine and takeout. I saw the news, she said. Your mum's really outdone herself this time. We sat around my coffee table, picking at the food. My phone kept buzzing with notifications as Mum's story spread. The comments are brutal, Aidan said, scrolling through his phone. What kind of daughter humiliates her recovering mother? This is elder abuse. She's worse than her mum ever was. They don't know the whole story, Sophia insisted. Maybe I did go too far, I whispered. Don't you dare. Dad's voice was sharp. This is exactly what she wants. She's trying to make you doubt yourself. Another notification popped up. Mum was going live on social media. Against my better judgment, I clicked. I just want my daughter back, Mum was saying, holding up her hand with the fake ring. I wear this as a reminder of my failures as a mother. Every time I look at it, I think about how I hurt my family. The comments flooded in with hearts and supportive messages. I can't watch this, I said, but Aidan grabbed my arm. Wait, look at her hand. I squinted at the screen, the ring on Mum's finger. It wasn't the replica I'd given her. It was a completely different fake, probably even cheaper. She's replaced the replica, I said. Where's the one I gave her? Check online, Sophia suggested, already pulling up eBay on her laptop. There it was, my expensive replica, listed as authentic vintage diamond ring with a starting bid of $5,000. The seller's username made my blood boil. Presley Vintage Treasures. She's doing it again, I said. She's literally running the same scam while crying about being a victim. Dad was already on the phone with his lawyer. Aidan looked sick. I've got to stop this, I said, grabbing my keys. What are you going to do? Sophia called after me. End it. For real this time. I drove to Mum's house, where she was still doing her live stream from her front porch. The camera was propped up on a chair, comments still flooding in. I walked straight into the frame. Oh! Mum jumped, quickly wiping her eyes. Lexi, have you come to apologize? No, I said, pulling up the eBay listing on my phone. I've come to ask about this. The color drained from her face as I turned my phone toward the camera, showing her followers the listing. You're selling the fake ring I gave you, I asked loudly. The one you just showed everyone as your reminder of failure. I can explain. And this isn't even the same fake ring you're wearing now. Where did that one come from? A dollar store? The comments suddenly shifted. Wait, what? Is she scamming again? Someone record this. Mum scrambled to end the live stream, but the damage was done. Her phone started ringing. Probably her lawyer or therapist. You just couldn't let me have this, could you? She hissed. No, Mom. I couldn't let you scam more people while playing the victim. That's the difference between us. As I walked back to my car, I heard her call out, I really am trying to change. This time, I didn't even bother responding. Some people never change. They just find new ways to hide their old tricks. The video of my confrontation with Mom went viral overnight. By morning, her social media accounts had vanished, and her phone was disconnected. She'd gone completely dark. She's running, Dad said when I called him, just like she did after our divorce. I was about to respond when someone knocked on my door. Opening it, I found Virginia standing there, looking worried. Your mother just tried to sell your grandmother's ring, she said without preamble. The real one. What? How? It's locked in my safe. No, dear. She must have switched it when you weren't looking. The one in your safe is another fake. My hands trembled as I ran to check. Sure enough, the ring in my safe was a cheap imitation. I'd been so focused on my revenge that I hadn't even noticed. Where is she trying to sell it? I demanded. Marcus & Sons auction house. The preview is today. The auction is tomorrow. I grabbed my keys, but Virginia caught my arm. Wait. There's something else you should know. Your grandmother left a letter about that ring. I found it yesterday. She handed me an envelope, yellowed with age. Inside was a handwritten note. Dearest Lexi, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and the ring has caused trouble. Your mother always wanted it, not for its meaning, but for its value. The ring isn't just jewelry, it's a test, one that your mother failed long ago, and one that you're facing now. Choose wisely. Love, Gran. I don't understand, I said. Don't you? Virginia raised an eyebrow. What matters more? Getting the ring back or stopping this cycle of deception? My phone buzzed. A text from Aiden. Mum's at Marcus & Sons. She's not alone. Cassandra's with her. At the auction house, I found Mom and Cassandra in deep conversation with an appraiser. The real ring sat on the counter between them. Stop, I called out. The room fell silent. Lexi, Mom said smoothly, I'm just conducting business. With stolen property? You can't prove it's stolen, Cassandra interjected. You gave it away willingly. Under false pretenses, I countered. And I have proof now. The police are on their way. Mum's composure cracked. You wouldn't dare. Not again. Try me. She grabbed the ring and backed away. This is mine. It should have been mine from the start. Mother always loved you more. This isn't about love, Mum. It never was. It's about your greed. Greed? She laughed hysterically. You have no idea what it's like to have nothing, to watch your perfect daughter inherit everything. I earned Gran's trust. You betrayed it. Ladies, the appraiser interrupted, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Not without the ring, I said. Mum clutched it tighter. You want it so badly? Fine. Catch. She hurled the ring across the room. I lunged for it, but it hit the marble floor with a sickening crack. The diamond popped loose, skittering under a display case. No, Mum screamed, dropping to her knees. Do you know what that was worth? I stared at the broken ring, Gran's words echoing in my mind. Choose wisely. Worth? I said quietly. That's all you ever saw, isn't it? The price tag. Never the love it represented. Police sirens wailed outside. Mum's face crumpled. I just wanted... She began. What, Mum? What did you want? To matter, she whispered. To be important like you were to her. For the first time, I saw my mother clearly. Not as the manipulator or the victim she pretended to be, but as someone broken. Someone who'd never understood that love couldn't be bought or sold. The police entered, but I held up my hand. Wait. I picked up the broken ring and held it out to Mum. Keep it, sell it, do whatever you want with it. What? She looked confused. Gran was right. It was a test, and I choose to break this cycle. I don't understand, she said, tears streaming down her face. No, you don't, and that's the saddest part. As the police led Mom and Cassandra away, Aiden appeared beside me. You okay? He asked. I looked at the broken ring in my palm. Yeah, I think I finally am. What are you going to do with it? I closed my fingers around the pieces. Something Gran would approve of. Later that night, I placed the broken ring in a small box with Gran's letter. Some things weren't meant to be fixed. They were meant to teach us how to let go. The courthouse was quiet as I waited for Mum's sentencing hearing to begin. Dad sat beside me, while Aiden paced nervously near the window. You don't have to speak today, Dad reminded me. The prosecutor has enough evidence without your testimony. I clutched my small wooden box containing the broken ring. I need to do this. When they brought Mom in, she looked smaller somehow. Her designer clothes replaced by simple business attire. Her eyes locked onto the box in my hands. The judge called me to speak. I walked to the podium, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Your Honor, I began, opening the box. This broken ring represents 3 generations of women in my family. My grandmother, who valued love above all else. My mother, who only saw its monetary worth. And me. Mom shifted in her seat as I continued. I came here today not to ask for punishment, but to end something. This ring was meant to be a symbol of family legacy, but it became a symbol of greed and deception instead. I turned to face Mom directly. I'm donating the diamond to a jewelry program that teaches former addicts how to make honest livings. The gold will be melted down and sold to help pay back the people you've scammed. You can't, Mom burst out, then quickly composed herself. I mean, it's your grandmother's ring. Exactly. And this is exactly what she would have wanted, turning something broken into something helpful. The judge nodded approvingly. Ms. Roberts, do you have anything to say before I pronounce sentence? Mom stood slowly. I've had a lot of time to think in jail. Every night I dream about that ring hitting the floor, breaking apart, just like our family. She turned to face me. I was wrong, Lexi, about everything. The ring, the scams, the manipulation. I told myself I deserved nice things, that I was owed them. But the only thing I truly deserved was to lose my daughter's trust. The court sentences you to 18 months in prison, the judge announced, followed by 5 years of probation and mandatory therapy. You will also make full restitution to all victims. As they led Mum away, she stopped beside me. What you're doing with the ring, Mother would be proud. I know, I said simply. Outside the courthouse, Sophia was waiting with Virginia. How did it go? Sophia asked, hugging me. Better than expected, I said. Mom actually seemed genuine. People can surprise you, Virginia said, patting my hand. Sometimes it takes losing everything to see what really matters. Dad cleared his throat. Speaking of surprises, I have something for you. He pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple silver locket. It was your grandmother's first piece of jewelry, he explained. Before the ring, before any of this. She gave it to me before she died, said to save it until the right moment. I opened the locket to find a tiny photo of Gran, holding me as a baby, both of us laughing. This, I said, wiping my eyes. This is worth more than any ring. There's something else, Aiden said, pulling out his phone. Remember that jewelry program you mentioned? I called them. They want to hire me as a business manager, help other families avoid what happened to ours. Really? I hugged him tight. That's perfect. Well, Dad said, since we're all sharing news, I'm moving back. Bought a house just outside the city. You're staying? I asked. Family shouldn't be scattered, he said. Even broken ones. Virginia squeezed my hand. Your grandmother used to say that broken things, when mended right, become stronger at the breaks. I touched the locket around my neck, thinking about Mom in prison, about Aiden's new job, about Dad coming home, about broken rings and new beginnings. Let's get lunch, Sophia suggested. I know a great place nearby. As we walked together, I realized something. The weight I'd been carrying, the anger, the need for revenge, the hurt, it was gone. In its place was something lighter, something that felt a lot like hope. "You know what?" I said, making everyone stop. "I think I'm finally ready to visit Mom. Not today, but soon." Dad smiled. "That's my girl." "Just promise me one thing," Aiden said seriously. "No more fake jewelry." We all laughed, the sound echoing off the courthouse steps. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's learning to let go, to rebuild, to find value in things that can't be bought or sold. I touched the locket again, imagining Gran's smile. Some legacies aren't meant to be worn on your finger, but carried in your heart.
Only $300? Are you mocking us? Your sister sends $1,500 every month. You should follow her example. Even though I send $2,000 monthly to my parents, they say things that seem completely ignorant of that fact. I'm really sending $2,000 every month, you know? Despite explaining this, my parents refuse to listen. On top of that, they provoke me, saying, "If you're lying just to cover it up, why don't you just stop sending the remittances?" It's infuriating to hear this, especially when I know I've been sending the money. So I decided to follow through with their suggestion. Fine. I said that and decided to stop the remittances as my mother had said. My name is Diana Miller, and I'm 28 years old. I work as a freelancer managing social media and designing, living independently. Originally, I lived with my troublesome parents and my equally problematic sister, Bridget. Since childhood, Bridget had always been deeply loved by our parents. That in itself was fine. It didn't harm me directly. However, my parents favored Bridget so much that they belittled me. I was constantly compared to her and looked down upon. The reason was nothing more than Bridget being cuter than I was. In truth, Bridget does have refined features, and I can admit she's attractive. But having a pretty face doesn't mean you can do whatever you like. Since we were little, she would act in ways that troubled me. When we were in kindergarten, she would take my favorite stationery or handkerchiefs and act as if they were hers. "This is my favorite handkerchief." When I mentioned that, she always argued back. "You're wrong. This handkerchief is mine. Look, my name is written here, isn't it? But you know, if you like it so much, it's not strange that I'd like it too. So this handkerchief is mine now. You can ask Mom for anything you want, can't you?" Neither of us would back down, and the argument would escalate further. At such times, Mom would always intervene. A stay-at-home mom, she probably wanted to calm things down. But Mom always sided with Bridget. "Bridget, you were planning to give it back, right?" "Yes, I was going to return it." Bridget would pretend to cry, but it was clear she had no intention of returning it. Even when I pointed that out, Mom wouldn't believe me. "Forget it, Diana. Just let Bridget keep the handkerchief. There's no need for you to have it." "But it's something you bought for me." "That doesn't matter. From now on, that handkerchief belongs to Bridget." With that declaration, Mom gently patted Bridget's head. Though Bridget had been crying, she looked at me while being patted and flashed a wicked grin. Even in elementary school, her behavior didn't change. In fact, she became a bit cleverer. The time when I started being spoken poorly of began when Bridget spread rumors about me to my classmates. I learned about it from a friend. That friend's younger sister was in the same grade as Bridget and had mentioned that Bridget was spreading negative stories about me. The story seemed credible, as when I passed Bridget in the hallway, she pointed at me while talking to her friends and said, "That's my sister." Hearing that, her friends either laughed or looked at me with puzzled expressions. What I overheard were all false stories, like that I stole Bridget's pencils or deliberately spilled juice on her notebook. In reality, it was Bridget who had stolen pencils, and it was my notebook that had juice spilled on it. But I didn't even feel like correcting it. I thought that if I corrected it, Bridget would harass me even more. As a result, I chose not to do anything and moved on to middle school. I thought I wouldn't have to deal with Bridget anymore after starting middle school, but a year later, she enrolled in the same school, and the harassment resumed. At home, nothing changed. My parents and Bridget continued to ostracize me. From a young age, I always felt like I didn't truly belong anywhere. Then, when I was in high school, something happened that I found utterly unforgivable. I enrolled in a standard commercial high school in the business department, while Bridget went to a different high school with a performing arts program. For the first time, I felt free from the harassment I endured at school and began to feel like I could be myself. During this time, I got my first boyfriend. Even when I told him everything about my family and Bridget, he didn't recoil and supported me. Even though we were still in high school, I began to think that I could see a future with him. But that hope was suddenly shattered. One day, out of the blue, he told me he wanted to break up. When I pressed him for a reason, he admitted that he had found someone new, that someone was Bridget. I was so shocked I couldn't speak, and he walked away. At that moment, I felt it was wrong to blame Bridget. After all, I hadn't told anyone that I had a boyfriend. I thought maybe Bridget had started dating him without knowing, so that night I went to her room to ask what had happened. "You have a new boyfriend, right? Actually, today I got dumped. He said he's going out with you now." "Well, technically, he's your ex now, isn't he?" He came to me right away. Her words made it clear that Bridget had intentionally stolen my boyfriend. "What do you mean?" I lost my composure and raised my voice without thinking. In response, Bridget laughed and started explaining everything. "Honestly, I just thought your boyfriend was attractive, so I approached him, and he told me I was more appealing." "How did you even know about him?" "That we were together. Social media. One of my friends is connected to him, and I found him through her followers list. There was even a picture of you two together." The shock left me speechless. But Bridget continued, completely ignoring my feelings. "How does it feel to be unloved by your parents and abandoned by your boyfriend?" "I couldn't endure it if I were you. I genuinely pity you. No matter how hard you try, I'll always come out on top. It's just because I'm prettier, isn't it?" It infuriated me that she was so aware of her own good looks. You should just wallow in your inferior appearance. "Oh, by the way, I have a date with him tomorrow. I won't be home. We're going to that cafe you both used to go to." After that, Bridget flaunted photos of her outings with my ex, the one who left me to be with Bridget. He probably had been meeting with her in secret, even while we were dating. "Now, get out of my room. I need to prepare for tomorrow's date." She said this as she pushed me out of her room. Meanwhile, the atmosphere at home remained cold as ever. When my mother overheard the commotion and saw me, she immediately started scolding me. "What are you doing outside Bridget's room? She has a date tomorrow. Let her rest. Stop bothering her." "Okay, fine." It's so pathetic, isn't it? Being dumped by your boyfriend. Her words left me deeply hurt, and I rushed back to my own room. There was no one left to take my side. I was completely alone. For weeks after that incident, I felt drained and unmotivated to do anything. No matter what my family said to me, I found myself caring less than I used to. I heard that Bridget and my ex-boyfriend broke up after just 6 months. It had nothing to do with me, of course. After that, I shifted my focus, worked hard in school, and graduated from high school. Since my parents refused to send me to college, I got a job and started living on my own. Unlike me, Bridget went to university and began attending an acting school to pursue her dream of becoming an actress. She stayed at home with our parents. Living on my own for the first time turned out to be more comfortable than I had imagined, and I felt genuinely happy. There were no parents constantly scolding me or Bridget relentlessly blaming me. If possible, I never wanted to return to that house again. While working, I hoped to meet a good man and build a happy family. Considering all the struggles I had endured, wishing for happiness seemed only fair. In addition to my job, I started a side business in design and social media management. 4 years into it, I finally became a full-time freelancer. I received no contact from my parents or Bridget, and my life remained peaceful. But 3 years after becoming independent, Bridget suddenly started reaching out to me. It was better than her showing up in person, but even her phone calls felt like a nuisance. The first time Bridget contacted me, I was surprised. A sudden chill ran through my body. I considered ignoring her but figured she would just keep calling, so I reluctantly picked up the phone. "Hello. Hey sis. Long time no talk." Her cheerful voice rang in my ears. I wondered why she was calling. "Yeah, it's been a while. What do you need?" "Do I need a reason to call?" "Can't I just call because I want to?" "It's been so long though. Are you really just calling to chat?" "Exactly. You know, so much has happened while we weren't talking." Bridget continued as though nothing had ever happened. She talked about how kind our parents were to her, how her acting career was going well, and how everything in her life was smooth sailing. She mentioned that she had started living on her own. The fact that she was talking about our parents suggested she visited home frequently. "Glad to hear you're doing well." I didn't mean it. I still felt anger toward her and my parents, but I knew that rejecting her outright would likely upset her again. "Yeah, I'm doing great." Her cheerful tone was oddly reassuring. After that, Bridget's calls became more frequent. Her conversations mostly revolved around her recent activities or complaints. I just listened quietly. Fortunately, I continued to hear nothing from my parents, which gave me some peace of mind. At the same time, I couldn't help but feel that I didn't matter to my parents at all. This made me wonder why Bridget had suddenly started reaching out so often. Every time I asked, she insisted she just wanted to chat. Honestly, I suspected she had some ulterior motive. And my suspicions were proven right. One day, she made a suggestion. "Why don't we start sending money to our parents regularly?" Send money. Her sudden proposal caught me off guard, and it was clear she had something in mind. "Yes, because they've taken care of us all these years. I just want to support them a little." I didn't feel grateful to my parents, but Bridget's reasoning wasn't entirely wrong. That's true. "So how about $2,000 each?" $2,000. I was stunned by the amount. Still, it made me realize she must be earning a lot through her work in the entertainment industry if she could suggest such a sum so easily. Although I hadn't seen her in the media, she was probably working somewhere out of my sight. "Sis, you're making decent money too, right? You should contribute a little. Can't we lower the amount a bit?" "No way. We need to repay our debt to them." By then, it seemed impossible to negotiate. "Fine. I'll send $2,000 then." "Great. It's a promise. Let's work hard together. Bye." With that, Bridget ended the call quickly. Afterward, I began sending the money as per her instructions. I still didn't hear from my parents, but I didn't mind since I didn't want to talk to them anyway. As I continued the remittances, Bridget's calls gradually became less frequent. This change, following a conversation about money, made me a little suspicious. Still, she always responded if I brought up the remittances, so maybe I was overthinking it. However, 6 months after starting the remittances, a shocking truth came to light. Out of the blue, I received a call from my mother for the first time in years. Feeling uneasy, I answered the call. "What are you thinking? What's with this amount of money you've been sending?" "What are you talking about?" "The remittance amount? What's the deal with only $300 a month?" My mother yelled. "That can't be right. Things may be tight, but I've been sending $2,000 every month." On Bridget's advice, no less. "That's a lie. I've only been receiving $300. Panicked, I checked my bank records, and sure enough, the $2,000 transfers were all there. Just as I was about to argue, my father's voice came through, as though he was standing nearby. "Learn from your sister. She's been sending $1,500 every month. Are you mocking us with just $300? In reality, Bridget was only sending $1,500. Yet my parents made comments as if they couldn't grasp that I was sending even more $2,000 every month. I'm actually sending $2,000, you know. Even after explaining, my parents refused to listen. Then, they made a provocative remark. If you're lying to cover it up, why don't you just stop sending the remittances? Their words infuriated me, so I decided to do as they said. Fine. I said this calmly and waited for my mother's reaction. This will prove you've been lying. Where did we go wrong raising you? Goodbye. Yes, that's for the best. I stopped the remittances as promised and used the extra money to buy long-desired furniture and other items, making my life much easier. Feeling refreshed, I decided to share the recent events with my friend, Maria Garcia. It was just meant to be casual chatter. At a small restaurant in the suburbs, we vented our work frustrations before I brought up the topic. This is what happened. Can you believe it? Now that I've stopped the remittances, I wonder how they'll manage to live. Were you okay playing the role of someone they could use whenever it's convenient? Maria had never said something like this before. Her words unsettled me, as if she had sensed something. That's not it. I just went along to avoid getting nagged at. But you haven't told them that, right? From their perspective, they might see you as someone to exploit. If it were me, I'd never agree to send money under those circumstances. Maria's insight hit me hard. In reality, I had been going along with their demands the entire time. I only wanted to avoid trouble, but I had never taken the opportunity to explain my reasoning to them. Taking meaningless calls after years of silence, agreeing to send money if your family knows your personality, they can easily guess what kind of person you are. Since the calls stopped after the money issue was settled, doesn't that prove they see you as nothing more than a cash cow? That's true. You're right. How did I not notice? Honestly, you're a bit too kind. Even if they're family, it's wrong for them to take advantage of that. I thought I was independent and didn't care about my parents. But from an outsider's view, maybe I didn't seem completely free. Perhaps, deep down, I still had a lingering desire to be acknowledged by my family. From now on, no matter what your parents or sisters say, you should have the courage to say no. That's my advice as your friend. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind for next time. Realizing I was just being used left me feeling down. Well, it's my treat tonight, so don't let it get to you too much. Next time they say something, make sure you stand your ground. Maria must have seen the disappointment on my face. I leaned on her comforting words and thanked her repeatedly before we called it a night. Even though I had stopped the remittances, my parents and Bridget didn't react at all. I hoped time would just pass without incident. But that hope was shattered 2 months after halting the payments. It all began with an unexpected call from my mother. Anticipating it would be about the remittances, I braced myself and answered the phone, only to be met with her furious voice. Why did you stop sending money? Do we mean nothing to you? What are you talking about? You were the ones who told me to stop the payments. I'm tired of always being made out to be the villain. I kept my tone calm as I responded to her. But my mother ignored my words and continued with her tirade. Because of you, we're struggling so much. Then what about Bridget's $1,500 remittance? That should be enough, shouldn't it? My mother fell silent for a moment. Is it not enough? No, it's not. We have all kinds of expenses and still have debt from your school fees. So restart the payments. Ah, so you're finally acknowledging the truth. In that case, shouldn't you start by apologizing? Maria's encouragement had given me the confidence to speak up. You've gotten so full of yourself. Stop being ridiculous. Who's being ridiculous? I think I'm making a valid point. Besides, isn't it strange for someone relying on remittances to act this way? And why has your situation suddenly become so dire? You managed just fine before without any help. That's because of debts and other issues. But it's hard to believe things would deteriorate so quickly. Are you hiding something? Realizing I wouldn't back down, my mother abruptly ended the call. Her reaction made it clear she was concealing something. Even if debt was part of the issue, there had to be more to the story behind their financial needs. What on earth were they hiding? With that lingering discomfort, I decided to leave my parents be. But just a few days later, everything changed. Maria contacted me, saying she had seen my parents going to a casino. It was now clear the money I had been sending might have been used for gambling. Is the real reason for asking to restart the remittances related to gambling? The day I received that information, I called my mother to find out the truth. I heard from a friend that you've been going to a casino. If you truly have debt, you wouldn't be in a place like that, right? Oh, I was just meeting an old friend there. Since when have you had such a hobby? Considering the debt and remittances, it's hard not to think that the money I sent was spent on gambling. Can you prove that? Do you have evidence that we've been gambling? The truth was, I didn't have clear evidence. I understood it was all speculation, but the feeling wouldn't go away. At that moment, I heard voices in the background, my father and Bridget. Mom, this time we're winning. We can enjoy ourselves again. Hey Mom, Dad said he'll buy me whatever I want if he wins. I still haven't gotten new cosmetics, so I'll make him get me lots of stuff. There was no doubt my parents were gambling. And Bridget, still living at home, seemed to know what was going on. Hold on. I'm talking to Diana right now. My mother hastily tried to correct her words, but it was too late. So you were gambling after all. That's horrible. And, before I could finish, my mother hung up the phone in silence. That act alone confirmed they had been lying. However, there wasn't much I could do now. There was no realistic way to recover the money I had sent, which had likely been squandered on gambling. For a moment, I felt a sense of loss and frustration, but looking back, I was glad I had stopped the remittances when I did. A week later, though, my father contacted me. Hey Diana, could you restart the remittances? Why are you asking me this? I mean, I'd like you to start sending money again. After everything that had been said, why would I restart the payments? In the past, I might have considered it. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I needed to stand firm. No, I won't give a single cent to someone who spends it on gambling. But you used to send money before. That's because Bridget told me to. You have no idea how much I had to save and sacrifice to make that happen. Aside from Maria, no one else knew about my financial struggles. Still, my father's words infuriated me. You decided to send it yourself. That's true. But I'm not sending any more. And with your attitude, how can you expect me to help? Though my words were harsh, I felt justified considering the way I had been treated. I'm sorry, but please restart the payments. We're drowning in debt. That debt is because of gambling, isn't it? Given your past behavior, it's no surprise this happened. How could you say that? We're suffering so much. I had hoped for an apology, but my father exploded with anger instead. You're so full of yourself. I can't take this anymore. It was a mistake to even ask you, he shouted before hanging up. 2 days later, my father called again. I'm sorry for what I said before. I'm apologizing, so please restart the remittances. His voice sounded noticeably weak. Was he truly remorseful, or was this just another manipulation? As I considered this, I continued the conversation. Don't make me repeat myself. I have no intention of sending money anymore. I'm not asking for the money you've already spent back, but I do ask that you stop contacting me. Why are you so cold? We raised you. Sure, I'm grateful that you raised me. But after being ignored for so long, how could I still love you as parents? If you need money, you should ask Bridget for more. She's earning well, isn't she? They pamper Bridget so much. If she's their pride and joy, surely she'd help them. But they'll probably say they can't ask her anymore. However, what came next was beyond anything I could have predicted. "Oh, Bridget, yes, that's true. But we've already taken as much as we could from her." Suddenly, my father trailed off. I was a bit surprised by his hesitation, but no matter what their reasons were, it had nothing to do with me anymore. I'll say this one more time. I won't send money again, so don't contact me anymore. With anger in my voice, I hung up the phone. Despite repeatedly telling them I wouldn't send money, they were persistent. Still, I suspected they'd try to contact me again. With that thought nagging at me, I carried on with my daily life. However, after that last call, I heard nothing from my parents. If they'd given up, that would be for the best. At least, that's what I thought until a month later, when an unexpected situation unfolded. To my shock, my parents and Bridget showed up at my home. They knew where I had been living all this time. They banged on my apartment door and rang the doorbell repeatedly. It was a terrifying experience. "Hey, we're here. We need to talk. We know you're in there." Their tone wasn't particularly angry, but if this continued, it would disturb my neighbors. "Open the door already." With trembling hands, I opened the door and let them in. "What do you want, showing up like this?" "You finally opened the door. We just want to talk." "Can we come in? Will it be quick?" "Yes, it'll only take a moment." This was obviously about the remittances. Since they had come all the way here, I resolved to end it today. "Fine, come in. But once we're done, leave right away." Yay. My first time in your apartment. Bridget was overly cheerful. My mother wore a smile, and my father's expression was unreadable. Their emotions were so disparate that the impending conversation felt heavy. "So what do you want to talk about?" I asked calmly, addressing the three of them. My mother was the first to speak. "Well, the thing is, let me guess this is about restarting the remittances? If so, I'm not interested. Actually, I think we need to explain why we've been asking for the remittances again." "What do you mean, need to explain?" Even if they claimed illness or unpayable debt, I had no intention of believing them anymore. But what my mother revealed next was completely unexpected. To be honest, the story about the debt was all a lie. "We knew you were sending $2,000 every month. The truth is, Bridget has no work in the entertainment industry at all. The story about her living on her own is a lie too. And the claim that she was sending us money, that was also a lie." "Wait, then why did you tell me to stop the support?" I asked. "Because we didn't think you'd actually stop. That's why we were so desperate to get you to start again. There was no debt. Bridget wasn't working in entertainment. And she was living at home, as I had suspected. But to think they'd lie because they assumed I wouldn't cut them off. They had completely underestimated and mocked me. I can't believe this. You've been lying this whole time." But then, where did all the money go? Was it all wasted on gambling? At first, we spent it on eating out and buying new furniture. But gradually, the money started going toward Bridget's cosmetics. And eventually, your father and I got addicted to gambling, she admitted. And then you called me and told me to stop the support? And when I actually did, you made things even worse for yourselves. I can't understand that, I said, exasperated. Honestly, my parents and Bridget were people who never thought about the future. If it weren't for that call, I wouldn't have stopped the support, and my feelings wouldn't have changed. "So, will you help us again?" What I asked, utterly stunned. "I'm just being honest. Are you really going to leave us in this state?" "No matter what happens, I will never restart the remittances." My parents still seem to think there's a chance I'll give in to their demands. If that's the case, I'll make it clear to them. Just as I was thinking that, my father spoke up. "When did you get so high and mighty? Your parents and your dear sister are asking for help. Anyone normal would comply with that." Encouraged by my father, Bridget added, That's right. Why won't you help us? It's thanks to Dad and Mom that you've grown up the way you have. Bridget is absolutely right. Who do you think you have to thank for that? Your mom and me. And we raised you alongside your adorable sister, who must have been such a comfort to you. Why won't you repay us for that? I thought you would understand if I was honest. Bridget finally started to cry, but it was clear to me that her tears were fake. My parents, however, didn't notice and kept comforting her. She's crying so much. Diana, are you seriously not going to restart the support? How heartless you've become. I couldn't stand it anymore. How long were they planning to keep up this act? Exhausted by their behavior, I took a deep breath and spoke. Get out. You're throwing us out when we're suffering like this. Get out! Leave right now. Hurry. I stood up and pointed toward the door. What's gotten into you all of a sudden? Suddenly? I've been putting up with this for so long. Do you even understand how awful your behavior has been? No, you don't. Isn't that right? My parents and Bridget stared at me, wide-eyed with shock. As far as I could remember, this was the first time I had ever been this angry in front of them. You three deceived me, came all the way to my home, and got angry when I said I wouldn't restart the support. I'm speechless. If you're out of money, then go earn it. Well, we thought since you were sending $2,000 a month, we didn't need to work anymore. Bridget is still signed with an agency, but none of us have jobs. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Unbelievable. But since you were sending so much, we figured quitting our jobs wouldn't be an issue. Ridiculous. You rely on others too much. I would never quit my job, and most people wouldn't either. I was just so tired. That comment only fueled my anger. I'm tired too. Why do you act like you're the only one struggling? That's not what I meant. If that's not what you meant, you wouldn't have said it. What do you think, Mom, Bridget? Startled, my mother and Bridget flinched and slowly turned toward me. But they said nothing. No matter what you say, my decision won't change. Even if you're being honest now, I'll never restart the remittances. At least hear us out a little longer. Actually, I'm sick. As expected, another excuse, I said, unable to stop a small smile from forming. All right, I've decided I'm not going to believe those stories anymore. In any case, you and Dad need to quit gambling immediately. If you can't, then go to a hospital. We don't have any money. Then you'll just have to work hard and earn it. I'm not going to be involved anymore. But the conversation isn't over yet. Tired of my father's persistence, I warned him. If you say anything more, I'll tell our relatives everything. About how you lied to get money from me, criticized me thoughtlessly, and then tried to force me to keep sending money. Do you want that to happen? At my words, my father's face turned pale. He began apologizing weakly. I'm sorry. Finally, you understand the consequences of your actions. Come on, you two, apologize as well. Following my father's lead, my mother and Bridget reluctantly apologized. We're really sorry. I'm sorry. Bridget, apologize properly. I'm sorry. Clearly, Bridget wasn't used to being scolded. Looking flustered, she managed to deliver a more sincere apology. If you understand now, please leave. With that, my parents and Bridget left my apartment. I hoped that this would truly be the end of everything. Exhausted, I lay down, wishing for peace. Afterward, there was no contact from my parents or Bridget. I wondered if they were genuinely reflecting on their actions. At the same time, I felt a sense of closure. Ultimately, I didn't inform our relatives, and everything that happened remained between me, my parents, and Bridget. Well, there's one other person who knows Maria. Maria has always been a great listener and supporter. When I confided everything to her, she gave me a warm smile and said, "I'm so glad for you." She also shared new information about my parents. Apparently, they had been spotted outside a local loan company. This suggested they were still struggling without steady jobs and possibly unable to quit gambling, burdened by debt. While this didn't affect me directly since I had distanced myself, hearing about their situation still hurt a little. As for Bridget, her profile had been removed from the website of the talent agency she was once affiliated with. It seemed she had given up on her entertainment career and was pursuing another path. What exactly she's doing now isn't clear, but I imagine she's living an unchanged life at our parents' home. I have no way of knowing more about her current situation, nor do I have any desire to revisit the past. 6 months have passed since these events. I've moved away from the area where I once lived and started a completely new life in a fresh environment. I've continued my work as a freelancer, and since this flexible way of working suits me perfectly, I can work from anywhere. Although I meet Maria in person less frequently now, we stay in touch regularly through messages and calls, so I rarely feel lonely. Now, free from the emotional constraints of my parents and Bridget, I'm enjoying time and space that belongs solely to me. I hope this peaceful and tranquil life will continue indefinitely. Cherishing this way of living, I spend each day treasuring my time alone. My name is Megan Baker, and I am 52 years old. I have been managing a catering business, Baker Catering, for over 30 years. This business is a family treasure that was founded by my grandfather, passed down to my father, and then to me. Now, having lost my father, I am facing a new phase. He passed away recently at the age of 75. Until the end, he was concerned about the company. Before he passed, we spent a long time in his hospital room. "Megan, I'm sorry. I've left you a heavy burden," he said, holding my hand and speaking in a weak voice. "Megan, I might have pushed you into a life dedicated to work. That's still my regret." I gripped his hand tightly, holding back tears as I responded. "No, Dad. I chose this on my own. This company is my pride," he continued with a smile. "Please also help Kathy and Nicole. I should have understood them better." I gradually came to understand the meaning of his words after his death. All my memories with my father are tied to this company. Following the chaos after the war, my grandfather started the business with a used food truck, and my father developed it into a full-fledged catering service. By the time I took over, it was already known as a venerable establishment in the area. I grew up watching my father, and this business was my everything. I have been single and dedicated my life to my work. I had opportunities to get married and start a family, but the company always came first. In my early 30s, I was engaged to the son of a business partner, but due to a major store expansion plan, I had to postpone the wedding date multiple times, ultimately leading to a broken engagement. I have never regretted that decision. In fact, that experience allowed me to dedicate myself even more to my work. 2 weeks after my father's death, an unexpected event occurred. Kathy, my father's second wife, came to visit me with her 21-year-old daughter, Nicole. Kathy and my father met at a dance class. Despite being over 20 years younger than him, he was captivated by her cheerful nature and nurturing personality as an instructor. Nicole was born to Kathy and her former husband, Billy Smith. Billy, a rising star lawyer, was immersed in his work, often coming home late and spending weekends away on business. The final straw was Nicole's 15th birthday. Billy missed it due to an important trial, and the family trip he had promised was canceled, leading Kathy to decide on a divorce. After divorcing Billy, Kathy met my gentle father, and they eventually remarried. Kathy and I have a relationship more like close friends than mother and daughter due to our similar ages. My relationship with Nicole was not awkward, but with over 30 years of age difference, we were more like acquaintances than stepsisters. She often met with her biological father, Billy, so there seemed to be no need for her to build a deep relationship with our family. One day, Kathy came to me with a serious matter. "Megan, there's something I need to discuss about Nicole." She wants to take over Baker Catering. I was taken aback by her words. Nicole was studying business administration, but I hadn't heard of her interest in the company. Before your father passed, we discussed Nicole's future, Kathy continued. He thought it would be okay to leave the company to her. I sighed deeply. Indeed, my father had been worried about a successor in his later years. He often muttered about the future of the company, knowing that I was single and had no children. However, this was not a decision to be made lightly. I had taken over the company at a young age, nurtured it with our employees, and grown it into a trusted enterprise deeply rooted in the community. Our efforts to actively use local ingredients had strengthened bonds with many farmers and established unique procurement routes. I tried to respond as calmly as possible. Kathy, I understand Dad's feelings, but this company is not just an asset. It's built on long-established trust and bonds with our employees. It's not something to be decided easily. I will never forget Nicole's expression at that moment. I can do it, she insisted, her voice trembling. It's the last wish your dad left behind. However, the situation unfolded far beyond my expectations. Nicole took my cautious attitude as a complete rejection. I studied business administration to take over the company. She protested, with Kathy desperately defending her. Then, she took a drastic step. At her university graduation party, she suddenly declared in front of her friends, "I've decided not to go job hunting. I'm taking over Baker Catering." The atmosphere at the venue froze. I was dumbfounded and could only stare at the scene. I looked at Kathy in disbelief. She clearly felt uncomfortable, looking away. I could see her hands trembling slightly as she held her coffee cup. That night, in the car on the way home, I confronted Kathy. While maintaining the calm I had cultivated from years of business experience, I took a firm stance. Peter, who had been my father's driver for 30 years, was at the wheel. I could feel the tension emanating from him. Kathy, can you explain? Why did you let Nicole say such things when I was opposed to it? My voice was colder than I intended. Peter looked worriedly at me through the rearview mirror. After hesitating for a moment, she began to speak. Nicole can do it. She is excellent. Kathy defended her daughter desperately. She can definitely do it. She has a talent for business. She majored in business administration at university and studied entrepreneurship. She has many new ideas. This isn't about talent, I replied quietly, yet firmly. This business is my life itself. It's built on over 30 years of trust, bonds with employees, recipes passed down from previous generations, relationships with suppliers, and a large community that includes our staff's families. I can't simply hand it over to someone with no experience. Kathy became furious. She had Peter pull the car over to the shoulder, her voice trembling with anger. You're discriminating against your stepsister. You don't want to pass it on to Nicole because she's not blood related to you, right? No, I responded, maintaining my composure. This is purely a business decision. Nicole lacks experience. I've never seen her passion for this business. I can't simply hand over what my parents and I have built over decades so easily. Peter silently started the car again. His father had also worked for our company. I carry the sentiments of generations of employees' families. The next day, I called Nicole to explain the situation. I'm sorry, but I can't hand over the company. I didn't know that Dad and Kathy had made such a promise. What? Nicole's voice echoed over the phone. My life plan is ruined. My mother promised me. I transferred to the business school for this. I didn't even look for a job. How will you take responsibility? The situation deteriorated further. Nicole's father, Billy Smith, is a prominent local lawyer specializing in corporate acquisitions and management disputes. A few days after my call with Nicole, he visited my office with a grave demeanor. Ms. Baker, let me be frank. Billy began calmly. Your father intended for Nicole to take over the company. This is a fact, and there are several witnesses. I responded slowly, trying not to show my agitation. That may be so, but legally. Yes, of course. Billy interrupted. Legally, I'm aware that you have the managerial rights. However, he pulled out a thick file of documents. Inside were detailed analyses of our company's transactions over the past 10 years. Minor contract breaches, slight lapses in sanitation management, and issues with employees' working hours. All normally overlookable offenses were recorded with surprising detail. These are not major issues in isolation. Billy continued dispassionately. However, if I assemble a legal team and initiate a lawsuit, you can imagine, can't you? The media would love to cover this story. The dark reality of an established catering company would be the headline. The anxious expressions of employees were palpable through the corridor. Billy's visit had already caused significant unrest within the company. If the company's reputation were damaged, it could jeopardize relationships with suppliers and threaten our employees' livelihoods. I decided to transfer management rights. Whatever happens, I don't know, I said to myself, barely containing a laugh. I will hand over the company to Nicole. But there are conditions. Please ensure the employment of the staff. And the recipes passed down from my father must not be changed. Billy readily agreed to these terms. However, I could not have anticipated the tragedy that this agreement would begin. Nicole started causing problems from the first day. That morning, she arrived 30 minutes late. I'm not a morning person, she said, causing perplexed looks among employees who had been preparing since early morning. She also did not keep her promise to not change my father's recipes. The first issue arose during a meeting with a long-standing client, Morris Electric, which had been entrusting us with the operation of their employee cafeteria twice a month for over 20 years. When Mr. Morris, the executive director, pointed out, "The taste of the usual stew has changed," Nicole reacted unexpectedly. "The customer is not always right. This is the new flavor. We need to change with the times." The atmosphere froze. Nicole continued her argument, ignoring the sweating salesperson beside her. For efficient management, it's necessary to change recipes. The situation in the kitchen was even more serious. Even when a veteran chef, who had been with the company for 50 years, explained, "This sauce is a recipe handed down from the previous generation." Nicole wouldn't listen. "This recipe is too expensive. There's no need to use expensive beef. Regular beef is sufficient. We can surely find cheaper alternatives for the seasoning." Even when the chef protested that, "The quality will change." Nicole dismissed him, saying, "We need to abandon outdated ideas. I'm putting into practice the efficiency I learned about in business school." Her forceful attitude extended to procurement as well. She unilaterally cut off a local supplier we had been doing business with for 30 years and contracted with a cheaper supplier she found on the internet. She introduced new ingredients without adequate quality checks. Isn't cost-cutting fundamental to management? Each of her words chipped away at the trust we had built over many years. By the end of the first month, we had lost contracts with 3 major clients, including Morris Electric. In the second month, 2 veteran chefs submitted their resignations. "We're sorry, but we can't utilize our skills with this policy." Then, in the third month, the worst-case scenario occurred. It happened during the 50th anniversary party for a major pharmaceutical manufacturer, a client since my father's time, where our company traditionally showcased its capabilities. More than 100 attendees, including executives, gathered at the venue. About 2 hours after the food was served, the first signs of trouble were reported. Guests began feeling ill, and soon requests for ambulances were made. Ultimately, more than 30 people were hospitalized with symptoms of food poisoning. A health department inspection was immediately conducted. The results were shocking. It was revealed that the storage conditions of the ingredients sourced by Nicole from the new supplier were inappropriate, and basic temperature management had been neglected. The incident was quickly reported in the media, and our long-established reputation plummeted. The claims for damages far exceeded the company's assets, and my personal assets were also at risk of being seized. The most painful thing was the expressions of our employees. "Will our salaries be safe next month?" Their voices of concern quietly spread throughout the company. Nicole's attitude remained unchanged until the end. "I'm not to blame," she shouted, continuing to shift the responsibility to the lack of supervision by the on-site staff. It was clear this would happen, entrusting company management to a naive young woman. Days later, a somber atmosphere filled the special meeting room. Lawyers, accountants, and insurance agents were lined up, with Nicole sitting alone at the front. Billy participated not as her father but as another lawyer. The total damages, including compensation, amount to about $2 million. The accountant read off the figures calmly. Insurance can cover only about half of that. The insurance agent spread out the documents. The problem is that violations of basic sanitary management regulations have been confirmed. This constitutes gross negligence, and we are forced to limit the coverage of the insurance. Blood drained from Nicole's face. Billy looked grimly at the documents. "The responsibility is clear." The lawyer continued. "Nicole's unilateral change of suppliers, disregard for sanitary regulations, and ignoring employees' warnings are all documented." "I will pay." Nicole's voice resonated. Although trembling, it was filled with determination. "I caused this accident. I don't intend to run away." Billy looked up for the first time. "Nicole, Dad, don't help me anymore." She looked straight at her father. "I must take responsibility for what I've done." Eventually, the agreed terms were as follows. Nicole would personally incur a debt of $1 million and continue to make monthly payments. The managerial rights were to be immediately returned to me, and Nicole would completely leave the company. Furthermore, she officially acknowledged all responsibility for the accident. "From now on, life will surely be difficult," Nicole said with a vacant smile as she signed the contract and left. After regaining managerial control, I was at a loss but began desperately searching for a way to rebuild. At 52, I worked tirelessly, much like when I first took over the company 30 years ago. I continued apologizing to clients daily and worked late into the night drafting a reconstruction plan. However, I also felt the limits of my physical strength due to age. I used to be fine with all-nighters, but now even a few hours of overtime were exhausting. Still, the thought of our employees' livelihood spurred me on. Thinking especially about the education costs of the children of our long-serving employees, I couldn't easily give up. During this time, unexpected reinforcements appeared. These were old business partners from my father's time. "Ms. Baker, your father was a great help to us. It seems the time has come for us to repay this favor." One day, the female proprietor of a local long-established restaurant visited. Her mother had also worked part-time at our company. "Thanks to your father employing my mother, I was able to go to university. Now it's our turn to return the favor," she said tearfully. "They helped us overcome this crisis because of the long-standing trust we had built. Clients agreed to defer payments, banks eased loan conditions, and most importantly, customers continued to do business with us even after the accident. Some even placed new orders, saying, 'We wouldn't trust anyone but Baker's company.' When my father was young, he helped a business partner during a financial crisis by lending money interest-free and supporting the company's reconstruction. 'Money comes and goes,' he always said. Now, I truly understand the meaning of his words. Thanks to their support, the path to reconstruction is becoming gradually clearer. It was especially reassuring when the veteran chefs who had retired came back. 'Please let us work under you once again,' they said, and I couldn't help but tear up. One day, Kathy came to the company wanting to apologize. She admitted she had spoiled her daughter too much. 'Megan, I'm really sorry,' Kathy said through tears. I put your company in jeopardy because I was worried about my daughter's future. Please forgive me." I sighed deeply. "Nicole, she left home soon after that," Kathy continued, her voice shaking. She said, "You've ruined my life and left just like that." I silently placed my hand on Kathy's shoulder. She, too, might have been a victim of this tragedy. What I've learned in my 52 years is that anger and resentment produce nothing. Instead, it's important to learn from these experiences and become stronger. Kathy, it's all in the past now. Let's look forward to a brighter future for everyone. Peter continued to drive for me even through these critical times. During our drives, he would occasionally share memories of the past, the times when my father was president, the struggles when I took over management at a young age, and how the company gradually grew. Each story reminded me of the weight of this company's history. Currently, the company is showing signs of recovery. Regaining lost trust is not easy, but together with the remaining employees, we are making steady progress step by step. Recently, younger employees voluntarily established a quality control committee and proposed a stricter sanitation management system. I was deeply moved by their sincere attitude. From this experience, I've learned an important lesson anew. Business is not just a means to generate profit. It is a precious legacy passed down from previous generations, bearing a social responsibility that affects many people's lives. My father often said to me, "Megan, business is not just an asset. It's a crystallization of trust and responsibility." I feel the weight of those words now. Since this incident, I have started to seriously consider succession planning. However, this time I will avoid hasty decisions. I will take my time to find someone who truly has a passion and sense of responsibility for this work. And most importantly, having overcome this crisis, I have reaffirmed my resolve as a business owner. A year has passed since then. The company has not only recovered but feels stronger than before the crisis. The bond with our employees has deepened, and trust from customers is gradually being restored. Nicole recently started musical activities. I heard she's living alone in a small apartment in New York, working a day job and singing at live houses at night. She continues to make monthly debt repayments while slowly starting her own path. Perhaps she's atoning for her youthful mistakes in her own way. The relationship between Kathy and Nicole remains distant. Looking back, Nicole's attempt to take over the company may have been influenced by her complex feelings towards her mother, Kathy. After remarrying my father, Kathy showed strong interest in our family business. She visited the company weekly, eagerly reviewed accounting documents, and engaged warmly with the employees. Particularly memorable was her reaction when she found an old album. It contained photos of my grandfather at the founding of the company and my father smiling with employees in his youth. What a wonderful family. Kathy held the album with tearful eyes. I later learned that her own family had gone bankrupt when she was a teenager, leading to her parents' separation. This experience might have strengthened her longing for a stable family business. "I don't want Nicole to go through what I did," Kathy once murmured. After divorcing Billy, she supported herself by working multiple jobs during the day as an office worker and at night as a dance instructor, despite receiving sufficient compensation from her lawyer ex-husband. She wanted to teach her daughter the importance of independence. However, this desire might have inadvertently pressured Nicole. A friend of Nicole's later told me that she had been involved in music activities since high school, performing at school festivals and actively participating in local events, but she never told her mother, fearing opposition to the unstable profession. When I heard Nicole had started musical activities, I checked her social media. There, I saw her singing passionately in a small, live house. On stage, she seemed a different person from when she was at the company, singing joyfully and connecting with the audience. The comment section was filled with messages like, "Your song saved me," and "I will come to listen again." I still occasionally communicate with Kathy. Recently, she visited the company, bringing a photo of my father. "Your father taught me what's important in life," she said, looking at the photo. "Work is important, but more importantly, living honestly according to one's heart is what truly matters." I nodded deeply as I looked at my father's smiling face in the photo. He taught us a lot until the end. Now at 53, I have a new goal to securely pass this company on to the next generation. To achieve this, I want to invest more in training young employees. Recently, we started holding monthly study sessions for all employees, discussing not only skills but also the company's history and philosophy. Overcoming this crisis has taught me a lot about the importance of family bonds, the responsibility of business, and the importance of continuing to challenge oneself, regardless of age. I will continue to develop the company with these lessons in mind, quietly waiting for a true successor to emerge. Until then, I will continue to nurture this precious treasure built by my father and protected by me. I am a 17-year-old female. Recently, my parents told me to figure out how to pay for my tuition by myself. I have already been accepted into the university of my choice, and there are only a few months left until the start of the school year. I had assumed that my parents, who are financially stable, would help me with the costs. In fact, my older sister had her college expenses covered by our parents, so I did not expect that I would have to bear the burden myself. My father is an engineer and my mother is a nurse, and our family has a stable income. Given this situation, I naturally thought that my parents would pay for my tuition. I expected that they would support me in the same way they did my sister, without me having to work or take out student loans. When I compare the standards my parents set for my sister to those they set for me, I see a big difference. My sister and I are 6 years apart, and she went to business school a few years ago, with all expenses paid by our parents. My father often proudly talked about how he spared no expense to send my sister to the best school for business. He confidently said that it was an investment that would pay off significantly in the future. Hearing my father talk, I thought that if I succeeded in business in the future, I would repay my parents. However, I wanted to major in psychology, not business, so I understood that my situation was not exactly the same as my sister's. Still, when I was applying to university, my parents did not bring up the subject of tuition, so I proceeded without worry. There was no mention of the costs from my parents until I received the acceptance letter from the university I was aiming for. Ultimately, I had to bring up the subject of tuition myself and ask how I could cover the costs. I felt the need to confirm whether they would pay for my education, just as they had for my sister, so I asked my parents. Naturally, I believed they would help, but in the end they said, "You need to pay for your tuition yourself," and suggested that I work to cover the costs or use student loans. I was very shocked by their response. Since I had always believed they would support me with tuition, I was initially very angry. Especially knowing that my parents had fully covered my sister's university costs, it seemed unfair that they would not do the same for me. I think it is understandable that I was upset about this. This issue came up a few weeks ago. My parents told me there was a reason for everything and asked me to stay calm. Then my father told me about a recent event. A relative had become seriously ill. This relative was a benefactor who had helped my father at the start of his career. The person was my father's uncle, who had been diagnosed with leukemia a few years ago. My uncle once had a considerable fortune, but had squandered most of it over the years on gambling and drinking. Moreover, my uncle's children were uncooperative and hardly interacted with their father. They never visited him in the hospital and almost ignored him. In this situation, as my uncle's end was nearing, my father decided to take care of him. My uncle's wife had died long ago, and since then, he and his children had been estranged. They stopped contacting my uncle and acted as if he did not exist. Therefore, there was no one else to take care of my uncle, and my father had to step in. My uncle's addictions had led many people to distance themselves from him. Everyone wanted to avoid being burdened with the responsibility by associating with my uncle. However, my father was grateful for the opportunities my uncle had given him when he was young and felt he had to take care of him after he was diagnosed with the disease. For several years, my father continued to care for my uncle and paid all the high medical costs himself. As a result, there was hardly any money left for my college tuition. My father had to consider his future and realized that it would be very difficult to maintain a living after paying for my college tuition. Therefore, he wanted me to develop the ability to cover my tuition on my own. "I'm really sorry," he said, but he believed that I had the strength and potential to overcome this difficulty. That is why he hoped and encouraged me to pave my way for the future. Even after my father explained the situation, I could not completely suppress my anger, but I still felt that his actions were admirable and could not blame him. My father's story made sense and was believable. Indeed, my uncle had leukemia and had been distanced by his family due to his multiple addictions. Therefore, we were his only visitors, and it was quite understandable that my father was helping him with medical and living expenses. It is also true that my uncle had helped my father find his first job. When my uncle died a few months ago, my father was deeply saddened and looked devastated at the funeral. I had frequently visited my uncle with my family and had seen the special bond between my father and uncle. Therefore, it was hard for me to be angry that my father, who had spent a lot of money on my uncle's treatment and left nothing for me. After much thought, I forgave my father and told him, if necessary, I intend to find a way to cover my university tuition myself. I also said, if I really have to take out student loans, I hope you can help me a little. My mother supported my decision, and my father promised to support me in any way he could. However, my mother seemed unsettled and appeared to be troubled, but she said nothing at the time. I had believed that there were no particular problems between my parents. At the time, even if there was something between them, I could not sense it. I speculated that the reason for my mother's distress might be that, unlike my sister, I would have to work while attending university. My mother apologized to me more times than my father did, and it was clear that this was a burden for her. I assured her, it's really okay, don't worry. At least my father hadn't wasted the university funds he had used them to try to save someone's life. It was for my uncle, who had been abandoned by his family, so I thought my father's actions were admirable. I tried desperately to reassure my mother by saying, it's okay, but she still seemed to carry some anxiety, which seemed hard for her to shake off. Because it seemed impossible to prepare the funds for university, I decided to look for other means and resolved to work in the months leading up to my enrollment. Thanks to several internships I had done before, I had some savings, but they were hardly enough to contribute significantly to my tuition, and I needed to cover the shortfall. This felt like the ultimate choice for earning money, but eventually it became clear that I had no choice but to take out student loans. Honestly, I wanted to avoid this because choosing to do so meant I would continue to face the pressure of repayment throughout my future career, and I wasn't sure if I would be able to find the job I wanted after graduation. So I began researching how to start my own business. I have always had a strong interest in programming. Influenced by my father, I had been learning programming since childhood and had acquired skills beyond those of my peers. I began thinking about how to earn money doing what I loved because I needed money to live. I had been planning this slowly without telling anyone. Recently, I have been feeling quite stressed, but last week I came across an important fact. It changed the way I viewed the people around me. It helped me understand where my father's money had gone or where it was heading. You may have guessed already, but it had a deep connection with my sister. That's why I had been talking about her so often. After briefly touching on my relationship with my sister, I will tell you what I discovered. I think it will make everything make sense. My sister and I are years apart, so we never became like friends. Our relationship was not bad, but it was not intimate either. We maintained a very neutral relationship. For our parents, our relationship did not seem to be a problem, so they didn't seem particularly concerned. We weren't always together, and we didn't fight often, so there was no perceived need to intervene to improve our relationship. As a result, my sister and I naturally kept our distance. I think that was the shape we both wanted, though I'm not sure why. However, her attitude began to change after I entered high school. She started treating me as if I were a rival. We had never been close, but our relationship became even more complicated after I graduated from high school. I think it was all her fault. At the time, she had just entered university, and every time she came home, she seemed to flaunt that she had graduated from the most prestigious business school. Honestly, she acted as if she was showing off her success. Moreover, she became overtly aggressive towards me, ridiculing me more actively than before. So, when I tried to confront this, she would only say that I should take it lightly, not as if she was being cruel, but as if it were just a joke. After entering university, I felt that she really became a terrible person. She still is a terrible person, up until this day. If not, I can't understand why she acted that way after graduating from university. Before moving to her apartment, she had come back to live at home for a while, and that period was the most unbearable for me. She kept bullying me, and as a result, we had a big fight one day. After that, we stopped talking to each other, but she continued to blame me and was mean to me without any reason. Now, she is a working adult, but she still seems to believe that hurting me makes her feel better. After graduating from university, she worked for a few years at a small company, but she seemed unhappy there. She thought she was too big for that small world and was looking for something better. She constantly complained about how foolish each of her colleagues was and claimed she was far superior to him. She made excuses that she couldn't find a better job because of external factors like the economy. In my opinion, the real reason she couldn't get a good job was not necessarily because she had attended a prestigious business school. Her attitude was extremely arrogant, and I felt it was difficult to work with someone like her. This was just my view. Every time she came over, she would express her dissatisfaction during dinner time. My father would console her inflated ego by encouraging her that a better future awaited her. Instead of saying that she might get promoted or find better opportunities if she stopped doing the things that frustrated her, he simply told her, "Just do your duty." My sister and I do not follow each other on social media. In fact, I have blocked her. I have no interest in her personal life and no intention of meeting her. However, some of my friends do follow her. They follow her out of mere curiosity because their sisters were in the same grade as mine. A week ago, a few friends sent me screenshots of my sister's posts. The content was a huge shock to me. It included a family photo, and of course I was not in the picture. The caption expressed how grateful she was for our parents' help and mentioned that they were the initial investors in her business. All my friends asked me the same question. They couldn't understand how my parents could invest in my sister's business when they supposedly couldn't afford my university tuition. At that moment, I had no clue what was happening, and initially, I thought about talking to my parents, but then I decided it would be futile. In fact, I already knew the truth. Even if I brought it up with my parents, they would likely cover everything up, make my sister delete the post, and even lie to me. That day was very tough for me. I had to make a choice I felt was unavoidable. By the evening, I felt there was no need to stay with my parents any longer. I felt that they prioritized my sister over me and avoided supporting me. They told me to manage on my own while trying to support my sister no matter what. It was clear they were doing nothing for me. I understood that my parents had a wonderful child, but I felt it wasn't me. I acted normally during the day, as if nothing was wrong, but by night I had decided to leave home. After packing my things, I took a taxi to a friend's house. I had already contacted them, so they were ready to help me with various things. However, I felt somewhat guilty for asking for further help without having requested it. They were already supporting me enough. When my parents came home and realized I was missing, they were quite upset. They worried about me being out late and not being at home, contacting me multiple times via phone and messages. They pleaded for me to come home soon or at least tell them where I was, trying to check on my well-being, but I never told them the truth. I told them that it would have been better if they had been honest from the start, rather than lying so much that they damaged the trust between us. After my parents realized I knew the truth, they said that if my sister's business succeeded, they would help me pay back my student loans. I should have seen the flow of money not as a sacrifice but rather as an investment, but for me, who was struggling without funds, it felt like nothing more than a sacrifice, and I had no intention of contacting them again. It was clear they didn't care about me, and I didn't want to live with people who neither loved nor cared about me. I was just a burden to them, and that was exactly what I wanted to avoid the most. My mother was probably even more shocked than my father. She had once left home because she couldn't agree with my father's plans, but she felt defeated and came back, as she had told me. However, I didn't answer my mother's calls and only communicated with her via text messages. I understood she felt deep regret and was sorry for what she had done to me, but I didn't know how to respond. I still harbored wounds in my heart because they had lied to me, thinking they could get away with it. It seems my parents had been arguing for a long time about the issue of me leaving home, but for some reason, my father thought it was my fault. That felt quite unfair. After all, he was the cause, and I was rather a victim of the situation, with no right for him to make me take responsibility. Ultimately, he created this situation himself. If he had been honest with me from the start, I wouldn't have felt this sense of betrayal. I might still have been angry about not having my university tuition paid, but I don't think I would have left home. I needed more time to think about what they did. My actions might have been wrong, but I needed time to overcome this event. 1 week was too short to recover from this event. Just because my father needed me to protect the family home didn't mean I was willing to return. When I needed him to support me with my tuition, he didn't help me, so I saw no reason to do the same for him now. Yet, it's true that I felt a little regretful. My mother sends me text messages every day. Previously, she just apologized, but now she not only apologizes but also expresses her profound loneliness, regret for everything, and her sincere wish for me to come home. She also mentioned that she had talked to my sister and would not fund her business any longer. The reason is that the money was originally mine. If my father were to invest in my sister's business, he intended to recover that money early on to help pay off the debt I was carrying. In the end, my mother took out a loan for my tuition and lied to protect me. My mother admitted that the investment plan was a complete failure. She truly regretted it, and that is why I want to return to my mother's side and at least talk to improve our relationship. I have mixed feelings towards my father. My mother was happy that I returned, but she and my father hadn't spoken a word to each other for several days, despite living together. My mother told me that the situation was uncertain. Furthermore, she conveyed that my sister was quite angry about stopping the investment in her business. Because of this, my sister would have to look for new investors, which would delay her business progress. Still, my mother said she would manage somehow with the funds she had, and if necessary, she would ask her parents for more money. My mother tried to support me so that I wouldn't have to worry about tuition fees. I am truly grateful for this. It was more help than I had hoped for. My friends and my mother's family felt sad that I had left home, but they were relieved and happy that the situation had improved. I cannot thank them enough for what they did during these few days. Even after university started, I continued to secretly run a business. Balancing classes and managing a company was never easy, but it was my choice. Surprisingly, the knowledge I gained in psychology lectures greatly aided my business decisions, and before I knew it, my company had become one of the most important clients for my sister's company, accounting for about 70% of her sales. In fact, I had started a small company with the friends who supported me at that time. My sister's company was using a system we developed to provide its solutions to major corporations. The transaction amount reached several hundreds of thousands annually, and it became a significant source of income for my sister's company, which employed more than 30 people. My sister didn't know yet that I was managing the company. All the transactions were done through my friends. One day, my sister contacted me through my mother. She said, "I want to meet directly with the CEO of your company and discuss a new project." At that moment, I made a decision. I revealed the truth to my sister in an email and informed her that all transactions would end. "I appreciate your business. I have an important announcement regarding our transactions. In fact, I, your sister, am the CEO of this company. I chose the path of entrepreneurship because our parents did not support my tuition. I apologize for keeping this secret. Due to changes in our management policy, we will terminate all transactions with your company at the end of this month." Late that night, my sister called me. Through the receiver, I could hear my sister's furious voice. "What do you mean? Our company's entire fundamental system was created by you guys. If you suddenly end the transaction, our company won't be able to function." I calmly replied, "We will provide a 3-month transition period. Please find a new partner during this time." However, my sister's company could not recover. Our system was made using special technology, and it was clear that switching to another company would be extremely costly and time-consuming. Major clients canceled their contracts one after another, and 6 months later, my sister's company was driven to closure. My father had invested most of his assets in my sister's business. As a result, when her company went bankrupt, most of my father's retirement savings were lost. Moreover, because he was a guarantor for the debts, they had to sell their house. My mother asked me with deep sadness, "Why did you have to go that far? We were supposed to have reconciled. Why did you have to destroy your sister's company?" My answer was, "You can't show weakness in business. My sister's company was too dependent on other systems. As a manager, I think that's fatal." My mother was shocked, but I explained that I made this decision not against my sister, but as a business owner. She understood the reason. Later, I heard that my father and mother had divorced. I haven't seen my father for a while, but I heard he became depressed because of their separation. My mother seemed quite disappointed in him and said she hadn't met him since. I have no interest in my father or sister and only wish to be happy myself. Now, the only person I can rely on is my mother. I am grateful that she kept her promise, asked her parents for support, and prepared my tuition. Currently, I am filled with gratitude that the friends I work with did not go to college and are dedicated to working. After graduating from college, I plan to grow my own company and repay my mother, rather than getting a job. My parents exhausted almost 95% of my trust fund for my sisters. I thought it would be good if I could forgive them, considering they are family. Let me explain the situation a little. I am the youngest of 3 sisters, currently 25 years old. The eldest, Gilda, is 33, and my second sister, Carol, is 31. They have been very close since childhood, almost always together. I didn't have any particular dissatisfaction with that, and even felt that being alone suited me better. My parents are both 63 years old and own a small grocery store, a family business passed down through my father's lineage. The store is the most important thing to my parents, and they spent most of their time there, devoting an enormous amount of effort. My parents always said, "Our family is equal," acting as if the 3 of us had the same opportunities and support. We 3 sisters inherited a trust fund from our grandparents. Each of us received $100,000 to support our university and early adult life, eagerly awaiting the day we could use it as adults. However, as a child, I didn't pay much attention to the trust fund. I thought of earning my money on my own and not relying on the trust fund, except as a last resort. During high school, I started a landscaping job. At that time, my sisters worked at my parents' store, but I didn't feel like working there. I couldn't quite pinpoint the reason, but working for my parents didn't appeal to me. Although my parents are wonderful people, They could be overly work-focused and strict in the store. I also wanted to earn money on my own terms, rather than as the boss's child. The landscaping job suited me because I could work outdoors and stay active without feeling stifled. Over the years, I saved $220,000 from that job. It wasn't a fortune, but I felt great satisfaction knowing it was all earned through my own efforts. Meanwhile, Gilda and Carol spent their trust funds completely within a few years. After graduating high school, they both went to university but dropped out midway. They enjoyed traveling for a while and eventually returned home with children. The money left by our grandparents ended up being detrimental to them. Gilda got arrested for drunk driving, and Carol was temporarily homeless before eventually working at the family store. By the time I turned 18, both of them were back at home, working for our parents while raising their children. To be honest, when it was my turn to access the trust fund, I felt confident about managing it. At the time, I was already in university and covering part of my tuition with scholarships. Thanks to my landscaping job, I was earning enough to focus on work. At the same time, I was fully committed to my studies. At one point, I faced financial difficulties and decided to ask my parents for permission to use the trust fund. Knowing my sisters had received the funds without conditions, I assumed I'd have no issues getting approval. At 18, I was an adult and confident I could use the money responsibly. However, when I approached my parents, their reaction was somewhat awkward. Instead of handing over the money right away, they suggested, "Let's discuss this at dinner with the whole family." They didn't explain why and simply told me to wait. At that moment, an uneasy feeling crept into my chest. Still, I reassured myself that my parents were just being cautious and responsible, wanting to confirm the details carefully. That evening, the whole family gathered for dinner. My sisters each brought their children, and the room was filled with the presence of everyone in the family. However, from the moment we sat down, I noticed that something felt different. My father seemed tired, and my mother avoided eye contact with me, a behavior she displayed when she didn't want to say something. After a long silence and a tense dinner, the topic was finally brought up. My father cautiously began, "We need to talk about the trust fund." He quickly added, "You might not think this is good news." After those words, he awkwardly started explaining that they had been using part of my trust fund over the past few years. At first, I just listened, wondering, what did they spend the money on? Then my parents slowly explained the details. When Gilda was arrested for drunk driving, part of the trust fund was used to cover her legal expenses. They also mentioned emergency expenses, like medical bills for my niece and other unforeseen costs. As I listened, I thought optimistically, maybe they used some of it, but there must still be a considerable amount left. Then my mother spoke. Her expression showed clear guilt. She told me that only $5,000 remained in the trust fund. Out of the original $100,000, only $5,000 was left. At that moment, I felt as if I'd been slapped across the face. At first, I had no idea how to react. All I could think about was, what happened to everyone else's money? My parents repeatedly said we never expected it to come to this. Your sisters were in difficult situations and needed help. Families should support each other. During this time, I just sat there, numb, listening to their words. This money was supposed to support me as I graduated college and took the first steps in my new life, but my parents treated it as if it were theirs, to use whenever they pleased. This was the part that bothered me the most. My parents didn't even seem to feel remorse. My father only kept saying, "Now is the time for the family to come together. Please understand. We need your cooperation." From his attitude, I felt as if they expected me to accept the situation without complaint, but I couldn't bring myself to agree. Why did you think it was okay to use my trust fund for other people's problems? I asked. They just repeated the same excuses. We thought we were making the best choice for the family, they said. Their answer vague, as if expecting me to understand someday. I had no idea how to respond. The conversation felt surreal. For years, I believed this money had been set aside so I could use it when I needed it most. But when that time came, I was told almost nothing was left. I didn't raise my voice or get upset. I just sat quietly, trying to process everything. I remember looking around the table at my sisters, nieces, and parents. They all looked so normal, as if this was just another ordinary Tuesday night, for them and for me. But my future had been taken away in an instant, and when I left the house that night, they barely seemed to notice. At that moment, I realized everything had completely changed. I couldn't forget that my parents had chosen to sacrifice me to protect my sisters. I felt as though I was just an optional backup source of extra funds when needed. The hardest part was knowing that the trust fund would never be recovered. It was completely gone, and there was nothing I could do about it. After experiencing this nightmare with the trust fund, I decided I no longer wanted to rely on my family. I attended college using $20,000 I had saved from scholarships and landscaping work. Without the trust fund or financial support from my family, I relied solely on the little savings I had managed to accumulate. It wasn't easy, but I felt a strong determination to keep moving forward, knowing that everything I earned from then on would be mine. I realized I couldn't entrust my life to people who were indifferent to my future or plans. For the next several years, I worked tirelessly. I worked weekends and holidays, taking on as much work as I could. By the time I graduated, I had no debt and had earned my degree. While many of my friends struggled with student loans, this was a significant achievement for me. I continued my landscaping work, which I had been doing since high school. Although I wasn't wealthy, I earned enough to make ends meet. A few years after graduating college, I finally achieved my long-held dream, officially registered my landscaping business, hired a few men to work with me, and the business began to thrive. I signed regular contracts with 6 men who worked under me. The business was on track, and I no longer worried about paying bills or meeting payroll. For the first time, I felt like I was building something I could be proud of. Meanwhile, things at home had worsened. My sisters continued working at my parents' store, while taking care of their children. From mutual friends and former neighbors, I heard that my parents weren't earning much and were still covering most of my sisters' living expenses. Whenever one of my sisters faced financial difficulties, my parents would deplete their savings to support them. There was so much I wanted to say to them, but honestly, I had given up on repairing my relationship with my parents. They chose their path and they should bear the consequences themselves. 2 years ago, I decided to check if my parents had made any effort to rebuild the trust fund as they had promised. I wasn't hoping for a miracle, but I thought there might be something left. I contacted a lawyer and asked them to investigate. The results were unexpected. The report sent by the lawyer showed a balance of $3,456 in the account. This was even less than the $5,000 my parents had previously claimed remain. I stared at the figure, feeling anger well up inside me. Not only had they spent most of my trust fund, but even after informing me about it, they continued to withdraw from the account. Overwhelmed with frustration, I called my parents and demanded to know how this could happen. I asked them directly why the amount was less than what they had reported earlier. After a long silence, my father started giving meaningless explanations about unexpected expenses and family support. Even after all these years, they continued to treat the money meant for my future as an endless resource and had hidden this fact from me. That was the last straw for me. I told them it was over. From now on, I would no longer visit on holidays or call them on their birthdays. On the day the trust fund issue came to light, I decided to live without relying on them. I no longer wanted to be dragged into their problems or listen to their meaningless excuses. I completely cut off contact with them. I was certain my parents would try to reach out again. As expected, they sent gifts, letters, and small notes on my birthdays and during the holidays. The notes said things like, "We miss you. Family is the most important," but I no longer felt any attachment. I returned the gifts unopened. I had no desire to read the excuses written in their letters. To be honest, at first it hurt. I often thought about calling them to tell them how deeply they had hurt me, but I knew nothing would change, and they would just repeat the same excuses, leaving me feeling even more drained. So I simply let time pass and immersed myself in work, focusing on my daily life. Having built a life for myself without them, I felt it was enough. I no longer needed them in my life. With a stable business and solid savings, I finally felt like I had control over my life again. And sometimes, I wondered what my grandparents would think if they knew. That money was meant as a gift to build my future, an opportunity for a better life. But my parents chose to use it for my sisters instead of me, and it went to waste. Still, I could say my life was moving forward smoothly, and I had accepted the reality that I would never see a single dollar of that trust fund. I thought I had been managing without the trust fund, but an unexpected discovery was made by my fiancé. We had been together for several years, and he fully understood the trust fund issue and my family troubles. He had supported me from the beginning and was considerate of what I didn't want to deal with. I believed he had no connection with my family, but one evening, he told me something shocking. It seemed he had secretly been in contact with my family. My initial reaction was pure astonishment. As I stood there in shock, he sat me down and began to speak slowly. He revealed that a month ago he reached out to my family through Facebook. He had been thinking about how he might help mend our relationship. The most surprising part was that he had kept this a secret from me. He confessed that he was worried I might get angry and end the relationship if he told me. That's why he had kept it hidden for an entire month. He even met my mother in person at a restaurant. He said he was moved by their conversation. My mother cried as she talked about how much she missed me and how badly she wanted to attend my wedding. I just sat there, quietly listening to his story. I tried desperately to understand why he had done this behind my back. He kept repeating, "I did it for us." He said he didn't want me to continue having this kind of relationship with my parents. I understand that he values family deeply. I also know that he comes from a close-knit family. He has never experienced the kind of treatment I've endured from mine, so he didn't know what else to do. I understand that he was trying to help, but what bothered me most was that he had kept it a secret for an entire month. I wanted him to trust me enough to tell me, but he was so afraid of damaging our relationship that he chose to remain silent. The night before the wedding, my mother called him, pleading for his help in reuniting the family. She repeatedly said how much she missed me and that she wanted to be there for an important moment in my life. He struggled deeply with this, regretting that he had kept it a secret, but he was afraid I might cancel the wedding if he told me. Through tears, he apologized. Later, his parents called me, asking me to forgive him. His father, who had supported me since the first time we met and treated me like family, spoke with sincerity. Over the phone, he told me how important I was to his son and that he couldn't bear to see us break up. He also said that he thought of me as a daughter. Those words deeply shocked me. I had always felt closer to his family than to my own, and hearing that from his father made me reconsider. And so I decided to forgive him. While I understood his feelings, I made it clear that I didn't want to be dragged into family issues anymore. He respected my wishes and promised never to contact my family again, agreeing that I should handle the situation myself. However, this incident reopened wounds I had buried for years. Just as I thought I had moved on, my family reappeared in my life. And my sisters wasted no time taking advantage of the opportunity. They showed up at my workplace with their nieces in tow. Although they acted polite, I couldn't tell if they were genuinely happy to see me or if they had another agenda. They started talking about how much they had missed me and reflected on the mistakes they had made. They seemed genuinely remorseful, and their pain came through clearly. It wasn't out of malice toward me. They explained that they were still young at the time and hadn't thought through the consequences of their actions. However, they admitted that being young wasn't an excuse and that they should have acted more responsibly as adults. Then the nieces asked why I had stopped coming around. They looked at me with curious, innocent faces, leaving me feeling as though I had abandoned them without reason. In that moment, the emotional guilt directed at me pierced deeply into my heart. Initially, I had felt anger toward my sisters for spending the trust fund, but now I understand that much of the responsibility lay with my mother. For years, my sisters had been lying, and my father had been dragged into it, powerless to stop it. The sisters told me that since then, my parents' relationship had become strained. They added that my father felt he had lost me because of the situation. They also revealed that my father had been jealous of the close relationship I shared with my fiancé's family, especially his father. They said it would take time for things to heal and admitted that they weren't sure if everything could ever go back to normal. The past couldn't easily be forgotten, and even if they were filled with regret, things couldn't return to how they once were. After they left, I felt utterly exhausted. It was as if all the emotions I had been suppressing suddenly poured out at once. I wanted to move forward, forget the past, and forgive them. Yet I still couldn't fully forgive them for what they had done. I thought that if they returned the trust fund that I was supposed to receive, I might be able to forgive them. While I was lost in these thoughts, I received a message from my father. He asked to meet with me alone. He also wrote that, even if it was too late, there was something he desperately wanted to tell me. I still harbored doubts, but I couldn't stop myself from wondering what my father wanted to say. I decided to meet him and headed to the designated location. The location was far from the family store. When I arrived, I saw my father and was slightly taken aback. He looked completely different from before, with the fatigue of aging etched across his entire being, as though he had lost his former energy and vitality. After we sat down, my father began to speak. He explained that he had discovered my mother was using my trust fund without permission and had confronted her about it. However, he chose to protect her, fearing it would destroy the family. He repeatedly insisted that he knowingly chose to stay with her, even if it meant losing my trust. Regret was deeply etched in his expression. He even admitted honestly that he had been jealous of my relationship with my future father-in-law. He acknowledged that, in moments where he failed to act, my fiancé had stepped up in his place, earning my trust. Shortly after, my father broke down and began to cry. It was the first time I had ever seen him cry. It felt as though he carried the weight of not wanting things to end this way. I told him, "I don't hate you. I've moved past the past and there's nothing you owe me anymore." I explained that the debt he thought he owed me had already been settled, and since the trust fund wouldn't be restored, I had no intention of holding on to resentment. At the end of our conversation, I suggested having dinner with my sisters and nieces. However, I made it clear that my mother was not welcome. This was about the years of betrayal my mother had inflicted on my father and the wounds she had caused us. Naturally, word of this reached my mother. I had anticipated she would find out eventually, but honestly, I didn't care at the time. My mother called me, cloaking her apology in an attempt to rebuild our relationship. I told her, "If you truly wish for that, start by returning the $100,000 you squandered without anyone knowing." Hearing this, my mother fell silent. During our final phone call, she repeated the same old excuses. "It was for the family, for the sisters," she said. but I was no longer the same person. I replied calmly, "Understood. In that case, we'll proceed with legal action." I could hear her gasp audibly over the phone. "What do you mean?" "I've consulted with a lawyer and reviewed all the records. I know exactly how you withdrew money from my trust fund and where it went," I continued. What stood out the most was not just the $5,000 initially reported, but the additional $1,500 that disappeared afterward. "Can you explain that?" After a long silence, my mother said in a hoarse voice, "It was. For you, that's enough." I interrupted her calmly. "You'll receive court documents next week. We're seeking $95,000 in damages, plus compensation for emotional distress." As expected, news of the lawsuit caused a significant stir within the family. The first to contact me was my father. "I want to tell you the truth." Fatigue was evident in his voice. "It was all your mother's doing. She kept saying she needed money, and I turned a blind eye to it." My father admitted that he had kept detailed records of the funds my mother withdrew from the trust fund and offered to provide them as evidence. Shortly after, unexpectedly, I received a call from Gilda. "I'm going to testify too," she said. There was unwavering determination in her voice. "She lied to us as well. I thought most of that money was for medical expenses or living costs, but it wasn't." When the trial began, my mother's deceit was exposed, one piece at a time. She had claimed to use my trust fund to support my sisters, but in reality, she had squandered it on luxury brand items and trips with friends. The testimony from my father and sisters became decisive evidence, leaving no doubt about my mother's actions. The court fully upheld my claim, ordering my mother to repay the entire trust fund with interest, along with damages for emotional distress. As a result, my family had to sell the store they had been managing. A year after the verdict, I stood by the window of my new office, looking out over the city. My landscaping business had grown significantly, with more than 20 employees on staff. I had also rebuilt a positive relationship with my father and sisters. Different from before, they acknowledged their mistakes and were making efforts to atone. Recently, I played with my nieces in the park, their innocent smiles reaffirming that I had made the right choice. For the wedding, I invited my father and my sister's families. However, I didn't invite my mother. She still justifies her actions and refuses to apologize. Even so, I chose to accept that and move forward. Sometimes, you have to stand up to your family to protect what matters most. For me, that stage was the courtroom. As a result, hidden truths came to light, allowing me to take a genuine step toward reconciliation. Family gatherings without my mother initially felt somewhat incomplete. However, relationships built on honesty and trust felt far more comforting than ones filled with deceit and secrecy. That was the greatest lesson I learned through this long ordeal.